MJF announces that if anyone else comes out to help Jericho throughout these labors, the deal's off and you won't get a match with me. And labor number 2 is a no DQ match next week against the most sadistic man in the industry. Someone who stabbed a man in the jugular and robbed a bank without a mask. I loved how slow he let these words come out, where this... I liked a lot of this for several reasons. Number one is that I think everyone just assumed that by starting with Spears, he's just going to go through the pinnacle. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, you get like the most left field of choices as he reveals that Nick Gage is going to wrestle Chris Jericho on national television next week. And my God, is this how you make an announcement for people to be excited next week? This was tremendous.
To some people, this topped the CM Punk rumors today. You know, Nick Gage being a part of AEW, not necessarily full-time, but at least having... I mean, Nick Gage being on national TV, I think is big news. Nick Gage having a match with Chris Jericho is massive news. And a match like this happening, like, out of nowhere, completely cold, without any prior mention of Nick Gage on this television show, nothing like this would ever happen in any.
And the
promotion.
reaction he got, this audience went nuts for a guy that has never been on national television, save for the Dark Side of the Ring episode.
Yes. You know, it would never happen in any professional wrestling promotion on national TV, except for an AEW and their reverence for their diehard fan base. They are a promotion that, you know, really caters to that underground fan. And some might say that's for better or for worse. In this case, to this live audience, it was absolutely for the better. They loved this announcement. They reacted huge for it. Nick Gage, to me, is another Eddie Kingston, maybe even more so. You know, a guy who can come out from out of nowhere and be immediately treated as a superstar, just coming from the underground. So, you know, he's of course going to be a massive babyface. I think immediately, if he ends up being a full-time guy, he is going to be one of the top babyfaces in this company. Coming in under MJF, I feel like we can safely predict that he is going to somehow turn on MJF at the end of it. And, you know, we'll see. I mean, I feel like if this is the first step, I feel like he's as good as in AEW, barring any other, I don't know, complications or whatever. Can he even cross the border if they do cross the border eventually?
That will be a question for another day, I guess. Yeah, that could be an issue. But I mean, they don't have any dates scheduled outside of the US, so they're good for now. I know it's the biggest match that the company has ever promoted, but I would really make a play that I think Moxley and Gage should be at All Out and not a Game Changer show. Like,
even if it happens a Game Changer, like, it's still fresh for All Out. It's such a smaller audience when you're talking about Game Changer.
Like, it's a big match for Game Changer. Like, it's the biggest match that they can advertise and deliver. But that to me is like, that match happening at All Out would be enormous. And I'm with you. Like, I think Nick Gage is going to be so welcomed, and this unbelievable babyface reception that he is going to get, that I just can't imagine this being a one and done with him. No, that the audience is going to just want to see so many more matches with this guy.
I would say, is like, he feels like he's one of those names that has remained on the underground unsigned by a major promotion that, you know, really, I feel like is a sure thing. I think like the Eddie Kingston experiment has been signed enough that there are certain names that are out there that can immediately walk onto AEW and be perceived as a main eventer, to be put into a match against the Chris Jericho, and people will immediately react to it. Nick Gage was at the top of that list. But you look at like what he's doing right now with Matt Cardona. You could put Nick Gage against anybody on that,
which
AEW
is this weekend,
roster.
by the way, that match.
Yes, you could put him against anybody on that AEW roster, and it'll be an attractive match because it's going to be unpredictable because it's Nick Gage. I hope that they don't overuse him, because he has
he should be an attraction. He should be an attraction. Yes.
Yeah.
Which is one of the things that, like, with this roster, for all we say about how packed this roster is, like, it doesn't have that reliance on someone wrestling every single week. Like, you can space out a lot of stuff with this roster, and I think it's like, I really feel Tony Khan is going with kind of like the Game of Thrones theory of, like, you have all these characters that are attached in this world, but you can insert people and strategically, have all those pieces on the chessboard, but you don't have to have representation by every individual on a weekly basis. You can weave people in and out. And I've got to say that I think they're doing a pretty good job with this, with such an enormous roster, that I'm not as convinced is this detriment as we might have viewed it at a time months ago.
It's like turning on, like, a Marvel show, and it's like, this character from this other show comes onto this show. It's got that same sort of big universe feeling that, the world of AEW is bigger than what you just see on its screen. And that's wonderfully exciting. The fact that they get to retain their identities and their names straight out of, GCW or any other show. It's pretty wild, honestly, when you sit back and think about it. Like, the amount of people that are in play in this universe. Like, we have, and really in wrestling in general, outside of the WWE, we have Bullet Club members now on Impact and AEW. We have just everybody kind of intermingling and mixing, and it's unpredictable and it's awesome.
The crowds, to me, have become the main event of these AEW shows, and it just seems like they are trying to come up with, like, ultimate. It's like Tony Khan has had every fantasy idea for months, and now he gets to just go wild with these ideas. And I really think it speaks to an audience that is very conflicted now about what they get from their WWE product versus a company that there's nothing off limits. If we want to get a Nick Gage, we can do it. They are never going to run out of interesting ideas. If they were in a position, if Tony Khan was in the position where 3 weeks ago he was handed Raw, okay? And we've got no challengers for Bobby Lashley. I promise you Tony Khan is coming up with something that would be out of the box, that maybe isn't Bill Goldberg, but it just shows you, like, that's the creativity they're working with. It's to satisfy the fan that knows who a Nick Gage is. And it's probably a bigger audience than some give credit to, but it's just fun to watch that they are not restricted by contracts. They're not restricted by promotions. If there's a great idea, they're going to move heaven and earth to make it happen.
Have you finished Loki yet?
Just go ahead. Make your analogy.
It's Kang showing up. I mean, it's Nick Gage's Kang, like to somebody who doesn't really follow comics or like some of the chatter online. I think seeing Kang basically means nothing. It's like, oh, okay, like, here's a guy that, I don't know, is supposed to be a big deal, but I don't know who he is. But the hardcores definitely seem to care, and I feel like they are, like, the Marvel Universe has been as successful as it has because it's done a wonderful job of balancing its appeal across mainstream and diehard fans. But I feel almost with more of an ear to the diehard underground fan base because those will ultimately inform everybody else. If you satisfy the hardcores, I feel like you can't go too deep into it, okay? Like, fuck, I don't know. Some names are probably like too underground, but Nick Gage is that perfect sweet spot that is like just bubbling from beneath the mainstream, only needs like, this type of exposure and really just needs the education and the exposure of a Dynamite, and the rest the crowd will handle. This audience reaction is going to be enough to make him a star, and it's going to be spread to, as many audiences that are big fans of, Eddie Kingston every time he does one of these live shows now. So it's a very satisfying watch if you are somebody who pays attention. But even if you're not, I feel like you can at least trust that new stars are going to be made and be, respected as such on almost every edition.